I guess the presentation was drafted in English, and it would make our lives much easier to use the vocabulary we were just learning in English before translating it to Romanian. Thanks everybody for joining, and thanks for your time on this. We understood it's a hot topic for all of us. It was for us when we were considering moving into a more normal working environment starting the 18th. And thank you to ABSL for facilitating this on their platform. I'll tell you a bit about, let's just start with introductions. And I'll tell you a bit about us and what we're doing and why we're here. As part of the JLL network, we're quite a large organization with offices around the globe, and going through this COVID-19 situation, having offices in Wuhan, having offices across China, we've seen the disruption this brought to corporate occupiers, and our colleagues that deal with corporate occupiers on the facility management side have a lot of insight in the situation. So as part of the network, we thought we'd use what we've learned from our own experience and our clients' experience in China mainly, but now also on the European continent, of going back to the office, and give you a bit of flavor, a bit of best practices, and help with your own journey in that direction. I'll start by introducing myself, and then I'll let my colleagues tell you a bit about themselves. I'm Silviana Petre. I manage the JLL office in Bucharest. I am as a base, I've been in the real estate industry, God, I think 17 years now. It's even starts to become, double digits starts to become embarrassing. Yeah, I think it's closing in on 17 years, and I'm very fortunate to be working with Maria and Marius for a long time. So I'll let them each introduce themselves. Mary?
Yes, I'm Maria. I'm now key client director within GLL, but for a long period of time, I was heading the landlord rep part of the office department in GLL. And now I'm heading to more corporate accounts. And you will see me talking a little bit about today about that part, big part of my life in the landlord part of the business. Marius?
Hi everyone, my name is Marius Scuta and I'm heading the office leasing department within Jones Lang LaSalle. So this implies everything that is related with the tenants, clients that are, let's say, searching for offices and trying to lease space into an office building. And I also have 15 years experience in this field.
Oh man, very good. I think we're closing into what, 45 years across the board here. It's not even funny anymore. So to dive right into it, we're going to discuss because of course everybody knows the context. We all have seen the news. Everybody's looking. We don't want to go that deep into that, but there are three main areas where we believe there are points of contact of this, and where you should really focus when looking at going back to the office. And one, and first and foremost, is how you interact within your spaces, with the existing building, with the other tenants, and with the efforts of the landlord, and what you should have a focus on. And that's where Maria is going to explain to you how and what we believe is the roadmap to that. Your leased space, how effectively you should, or what the best practices are, or our experience, because right now we're all testing this, but our experience so far from our corporate occupiers and ourselves, what you should be considering within your own space, within your own offices. And in the and that's where Marius comes in with his corporate solutions perspective on the issue. And then, but not last, is how to integrate your people and the way that you work with people, and we'll talk a bit more about that. So these are the three main points, the three main areas we're going to be touching today. We said no context, but a bit of context. We've run a survey on our CE offices, so Romania, Hungary, Czech Republic, and Poland, the larger offices in our region, around 800 people in total, because we have more than 680 people in Poland. And we've run a survey about working from home, and the outcome of the survey was surprising to some. People don't really appreciate working from home all that much. They like it, it's fun for a couple of days, maybe a week or two, but then it gets tiresome. And the two main areas where people have complaints is the human interaction that is missing, of course, and the office ergonomics. So the way you sit, two screens, what the office caters for in your day-to-day work life. So the conclusion of our study, which is vast, and if you're interested, we can take it offline and discuss it. The conclusion is that this is not for an entire population of workforce. This is not a long-term solution. And because it's not a
one thing to add on that slide is that this is coming from a company that most of the time has had the flexibility to work from home. So we, as a consultants, we could have worked from home for a lot of
and we're used to it.
Exactly. Yes.
So it's a practice. Yeah. So we already had left from a point of being more comfortable and having all the tools, by the way, IT and otherwise, and the use of working from home, and still it gets tiresome after a while. And what we found out that it's important to understand when you open up the office and to properly analyze when you should open up the office. We've all been through these stages. I hope you see my pointer. We've been through the shock of what's going on, the realization that we need to confront the situation, closing of the offices, and then for some more than others, a bit of a productivity challenge, depending on how prepared each company was to face the work from home environment. And now we're moving into this stage here of reimagination of the workspace and re-entry into the workplace. Very important how you implement these steps. There was a disruption when we first started this process, when we responded to the pandemic and we closed everything down. That created a disruption. Going back to the office might, if not done right, might bring another disruption that we're trying to prevent with the way of working that we're going to propose in this presentation. These are the 4 guiding principles to making decisions as we see them. Prepare the workplace, ensure your employees feel safe and supported, help the employees that will still be working remote for various reasons that will come back to, help them maximize productivity, and ensure, and this is a big ensure compliance with protocols. We've seen it across the board. You can have the best rules in the world. If they're not complied with, you have an issue. So ensure compliance with protocols is a big thing in having a back to office, a successful back to office process. When we first started discussing this presentation with Andrea and Cristina, there were some questions on the general picture of how, and the general, the big roadmap, the big picture of how you go back to the office. And of course, we can, because we're real estate specialists and spaces specialists, we can only discuss that bit. But we did put together, with the help of our corporate solution teams, this re-entry readiness checklist, because of course, as some of you were asking very well, and during our conversation with ABSL, it was also raised, there are internal governance issues, there are government and regulatory issues to going back to the office. There are legal issues, including liability issues towards potentially towards your employees and so on. We have marked in red, very scholarly, what we're gonna be touching on today. And we're gonna talk about the landlord cooperation, we're gonna talk about workplace and occupancy, we're gonna talk about the phased reentry and how we see it and how best to do it, and a bit about how the building can be brought into a situation that will accommodate people. Of course, communication is key in times of crisis, as all of you know, I'm sure, and this is something that we touch upon lightly, but should not be should really be considered very seriously in terms of the overall process. And I will give it to Mary now, if you will.
So, you know, it's always, I'm a control freak, and it's easy when I can be in charge of stuff and I can decide what it's being done with me and with my life. And I think it's the same here. You know, you can decide what to do in your office, and you can decide what are the rules, and you can watch them being applied, but you can't control what the others are doing. And first, we need to look at it, because that's the first thing. When you are going into the office, first you go into the reception, you go into the lobby, and you go into the office building. You generally, and as the majority of the tenants, are not going directly in their office. So that's why we decided also to start with this part, with the building part. And I think that the good news is that discussing with the landlords in the market, majority of them are looking at it, are implementing the measures, and are looking for the best solutions in order to ensure the re-entry of the tenants in their building. But when we are looking as a tenant to the building, it's important to think about five things, and to ask and watch for those things from the building in which you are. So first of all, it's the building technical readiness and evolution, and I will touch it also in the next slide. It's from air conditioning and the filters, is from what buttons you can touch or not, and to go into the elevators, and all these technical things that are in a building and can help you prevent and help you with the re-entry. Then I think the most important one, and the one that raises all the questions and the cost nowadays, is the cleaning. It's not only the day-to-day cleaning that it has to be done differently, but it's also the preventive and the reactive one in the building. And we will touch again in the next slide a little bit more details about it. Then another one is communication in common areas, because the common area of the building are the areas where people can accumulate and can be practically not practicing the social distancing. And that's why it's very important how you communicate in this. And I'm talking about reception, I'm talking about lobbies, I'm talking about toilets, I'm talking about smoking areas. Elevators, yeah, one of the most theoretically dangerous one. And for us, it's a very particular subject also, the mail lockers, because as we've seen right now, very few buildings have this thing implemented already in the lobbies. And we think that with this crisis, it's very important to ask from your landlord to have this, because going around into the building with a lot of, I don't know, EMAG and Fan Courier and all this mail, it's not helping the social distancing. So it's a very easy solution to ask for lockers in the reception and to have it there, and not have people all over the place. And at the end, practically, it doesn't matter if you do all the 4 of them, but you also need to check if the cleaning is done with the proper product, if the sorry, if the filters in the air conditioning are the proper one, and so on and so forth. So all this together, you have to look at when you discuss with the landlord and the things that they are implementing in order to help you re-entry into the office. So for example, if we're talking about janitorial practices, you need to know who is doing it, and if they are doing it hourly, if they are touching the entire lobby, lift lobby and common spaces, and if the solutions that they are using are the right ones.
Also, if they're people, because these are usually subcontracted to other companies, if they're people that are properly dressed, so they're properly attired with masks and so on, and have been given the have been given the safety instructions, because they will be touching the entire building on the common areas. So that's also a consideration.
Yeah, of course, when we are talking about cleaning, there are a lot of other solutions, but these are key things to look for it. Then we saw a little bit of, as Silviana said at the beginning, good practices. So for example, sensors for the opening of the doors, or for the opening of the water, or for toilets even. All this would really help in not spreading, if the case, the virus. So sensors, wherever it's possible, would be really, really nice to have in the building and to accommodate as an improvement. For example, if we are talking about elevators, because a lot of people are looking at it, because it's a very small enclosed space where it's very hard to keep the social distancing. We were also considering somebody that it's pressing the button and it's properly again dressed, and not everybody touching the buttons in the elevators or outside the elevators. Another very important subject is, as I said, common areas and how you communicate in the common area. You have to very, very well show where they can sit. For example, in an elevator, you can mark with an X how many people and where they can sit in the elevator. Then if we're going about reception, how many can enter in the reception. You can mark, as in the supermarkets, the distance that they have to keep before announcing themselves at the reception, and so on and so forth. But it's important to show that it's not allowed to sit here and to smoke close to each other, for example, because this is not helping with the social distancing. HVAC, I had this debate 2 days ago, and I said, like, it doesn't matter what we are doing. If the HVAC system is not the correct one, no matter how we are staying and how many X's we are doing and how communication will be. But this is very, very important. Ask your landlord what he's doing, what is he's implementing, what our filters are, how many times a day they are changing the fresh air, and how they are doing it. It's important to understand if this help you in re-entering to the office.
And please consider your buildings as a community of tenants and landlord, because just to give you an example, I think it was one of our larger offices in the US. Once they started implementing social distancing, because it's now starting to be implemented there as well, not to the same degree as in Europe, but still. Once they started implementing social distancing measures inside our offices, which is, I don't know, 30 levels, so it's a huge building, and we were on one of the top floors. It took 6 hours to let people in. So because of the flow of people, because everybody came at the same time, because they didn't talk to one another, because they didn't communicate and cooperate with the landlord, there was a flood of the same type, the same people going in at 9 a.m. in the morning at the office, And it took, I don't know, a ridiculous amount of time in hours to get inside the building with these measures. So get together with your landlord, have a video, social distancing first. Get together with your landlords, talk to the other, have them talk to the other tenants, plan for this, because it's going to impact the way that the building itself functions.
One of the recommendation came also from our colleagues. It's of course depending from one building to another, but where you have buildings with few elevators, you can definitely speak with the landlord the possibility of using the stairs, because on the staircase you can keep a certain distance, but you can still use it more often than the
Elevator.
There was a question, and thank you for this, and please keep them coming in the Q&A section. We'd love to hear from you. There's a question related to the costs of the landlord for all of this. These will be most likely passed on to you through the service charge, as any building costs.
Yeah, there will be a category that are considered investment in the building. For example, like it could be the temperature sensors, and that would be on the landlord side. But the cleaning, as it is right now, it's included in the service charge, so it will be there. We've asked for some estimation, and for sure the service charge will increase with all these measures. It's not a very high increase, so don't expect that. The estimations are anywhere between 15 to 20 cents.
But it will be some increases, yes.
Yes, but if you're gonna find it in the service charge, as it is normal to find it, but it's not huge. And some of these measures should be common sense and educational measures. So it doesn't cost to have proper signage, not a lot. It doesn't cost to be mindful of 1.5 meters when you wait in a line. Those things don't cost. It's a matter of communicating, deciding together, and following rules. And let me just go through, and I'll leave Marius with this one.
Yeah. So let's go through the lease space, and we debated if we should put this in the presentation or not, but I think it's a very good example, and it's already public, a case of a call center company in South Korea, where they have organized a map on how the people got sick, how the people got infected. And as you can see from this principle, from this space planning, you see exactly how fast and how well it was spread exactly in an open space. Starting from this true story, let's say, and having our facility manager people working specifically for clients, for tenants in the buildings, they start receiving a lot of requirements, a lot of asking for recommendation on how we should prepare our re-entry into the office. And everything that you'll see on the next slides, plus other information that we can share with you offline, are general recommendation, guideline, rules that any tenant could relate to and could take and implement in the office. Of course, this is our responsibility, starting from managers of the companies, HR managers, and facility managers to implement such measures. As you see in this image, everything should be considered, starting from the reception, measures that should be implemented to your receptionist, as like visitor screening service, temperature screenings. We have had questions from tenants on who should implement a screening equipment in the office. Should be the landlord, the reception, or should be the tenants inside? Our strong recommendation is for each tenant to acquire such mechanism, if possible, and to install into the space, because if you are doing in the reception of the building, you'll have the same situation like Silviana presented, like 6 hours to accommodate all the people. So if you like to have such machinery installed in the office, should be in the reception and check the people. Of course, it always remains the question about the asymptomatic people that will pass this machinery with no worries. But still, it's let's say for some tenants to install such machine was another example of relaxing a little bit the tenants, or ensuring the tenants that they are doing all the measures to keep them safe.
It is true that these temperature screening machines are range anywhere between 500 euros and 10,000 euros. We've seen 7,000 is what I've seen with my own eyes, and they can be faster or slower, they can be more complex or whatnot. Again, these are things that should be discussed with the building, should be taken into account by both tenant and building, and decide on how best to advance.
Yes, and then considering as well the potential issues that could appear in the food and beverage area, which is the internal cafeterias, if existing. Then of course the cleaning inside the office space, not on the common areas. Also focus on employee health and wellness, including some welcome back kits that we will have some examples.
We'll discuss them.
Yes, and guideline, the most important being the space guidelines and adjustments, which we also discuss a little bit with some images on the next slide. Of course, as I said, our colleagues, before providing the recommendation, they said that together with the tenants, so all of us together, the managers of the companies and the HR managers, we need first, if possible, to look on the an employee's day coming to the office, starting from how they are getting to work, how they are arriving and entering inside the office, how they are working inside the office, the lunch break, where they are having the lunch break, how we are using the technology, especially focus on the wireless technology, other breaks that you can take during the working hour or after the working hour, and how you reach home. So they touch base with examples on these steps, and moving towards the recommendation inside the office space. One of the main focus that we need to, and we recommend the tenants to do, is first to take your space planning. So try to get from your real estate people your current space planning, and try to prepare a plan of people, of which people are the most necessary to come to work, if they are coming in shifts, and try to identify the location, the exact location where the social distancing will have a potential breach. I'll make a parenthesis and say that I personally hate the social distancing term. I prefer more of physical distancing. Social distancing, I mean, it's exactly what we don't need right now. We should be more empathic and support each other, because we are all going through this. So I would prefer the physical distancing. So here is an example where a tenant identified several points with high risk of social distancing being in breach. So you should all work like this based on your space planning. Of course, some of you may have a full office, a full floor when leasing, some are part of the full floor, but you should start working from that point. And then if we enter into more details, then
just some examples, Marius. We are talking about, I don't know, cafeterias, reception, copy points, stuff like that.
Meeting rooms, social rooms, relaxation rooms, gaming rooms, everything needs to be considered. Corridors. So as I said, when you have a full floor into a building, you can definitely create some paths on how you move people inside the office. But again, we have an example on that later on as well. So you should definitely, I mean, everybody will look at the less dense offices. So you need to focus on how you put people and keeping the 1.5 meters, 2 meters rule distancing between people. So this is an example on the office with the red dots being the places that should remain empty. And it's another good example on how you can mark those places for people not to forget. Either you can put on X on the chair or a message on the respective desk.
Or if you have the possibility, remove the chair altogether.
if you have this possibility and to store the equipment. If not, if you don't like this, you can put something else. I don't know, you can put a flower there on the desk, or you can put something that will attract the people's attention not to use that desk. That's for the cases where you can still keep people in shifts, one shift at home, one shift in the office. If you have shifts during the day, then you definitely need a break between the shifts to clean, to have a clean, and then to have the other people coming on board. Again, offline, we can give you some examples how you can create teams and how you can manage these teams not to see each other, to meet each other, to use the same desk. Yes, so for instance, here in this example, on the red dots, you can use for the morning shift, and on the green dot, you can use the afternoon shift. So again, you can play with this as much as possible. In the square that, just one moment, Sylvia.
Sorry.
In the square that you see below, you see a high density of people in the office, but that only in case the separation between people are being done either to plastic boards, either to high wooden storage or something like that. So the only possibility to have people like this is to have specific
Physical separation.
Yes, physical separation. Okay, moving to the next slide, which is the conference room. You have two options with the conference room. First, it's clear that in case you need a conference room, you have to decrease the capacity, and you should assume minimum 50% decreased capacity in your meeting rooms. You have few examples here. We can provide others as well, depending on the meeting room capacity. Other tenants, because they don't have space or they need to keep a lot of people in the office, they transform these meeting rooms into the fixed desks. So you can use the same furniture, but keep the people separate as per the below example. So you can play with the meeting rooms. If you need it, you can use it, but keeping minus 50% of capacity and of course the physical distance, or transform into the fixed office to increase the capacity of your office. Open collaboration spaces. Again, you have to think about that. You have to implement this strategy of distancing. You have to look on your space planning and see exactly how you divide it. This is again an example, but it's an example.
And you can see that it's less than 30% in terms of, because these usually are more playful, they're more relaxed and so on. In these areas, you will end up with 30% occupancy in this social distancing or physical distancing scenario.
And again, our recommendation is to mark somehow. Either you mark the places that the people can use in the respective time till the next cleaning, or to mark the places that they are not allowed to use during the day. Training rooms, if applicable, again, with even a bigger, more distancing policy, if you look at the example. So you have to keep the distance more than 2 meters. This is the highly recommended as well. Now, yeah, please, Silviana.
These are some tools that have been put together by our IFM teams, our client-based facility management teams. It goes to show exactly what Marius was saying earlier. This is the map of the same space, right? You have shift A, B, C, and D. They went with 25% occupancy, and they mark, you know, in order to be able to shift them around, they mark where each shift can go. This, of course, for HR people and for leaders, it's going to be a discussion on who you bring together in the office, what's more important to have business continuity, so have teams split in two, so you have the leader plus a part of the team and the second in command plus the rest of the team in two separate teams that come on alternative days or weeks in the office in order to keep on business continuity. There's also a more, I don't know, softer approach, if you will, keep teams together in order for them to still keep the discussion going and keep the interaction going. That's another train of thought. It's really up to how your organization works and how your teams are interacting with one another. Also, it can be automated. There are systems, and I'm sure that that some of you might have these. There are systems that can allocate. We, for example, use the sort of system in our Polish office that allocates, the AI allocate you in a certain area of the office each day when you're coming into the office. So you don't get a desk, of course, but you get a place in the building where you can go and sit, and all of this is done automatically for you. That's for very large offices that need this sort of automation.
I think you touched one of the questions that came through the chat. If we do have a hotel app for sitting reservation, here on the locally we don't have, but as Silviana said, we have our colleagues from Poland office. They have such thing. But one thing which is extremely important, all the recommendation coming from all the sources, is to avoid using flex offices during this period. So flex offices, hot desking, whatever is the term that we are using, is recommended not to be considered. So we have, at least during this period, in order to keep the high level of health security, we need to rethink and coming back, at least for temporary, again, to coming back to fixed desks. Fixed not necessarily per person, but again, per shift, how do you want to put it? But the flex offices is one of the high risks at this moment. Inside, again, the hot desking. It's a high risk for breaching the distancing and getting sick. As I mentioned earlier, depending on how your space planning looks, you should also consider pathways for people moving into the office, one way in, one way out, if possible. Going to the print machine on one way and returning through another, through other corridor, other path. You need to think this, if your space allows you to do such things. Of course, you need to other measures as normal. You need to ensure home working kits are adequate. If your employees have the proper technical solution to work in the house.
And I think
there's a question also on the cafeteria. So just to
yeah, we'll get there. We'll get to the cafeteria as well. Just a thought. I think the one thing that is to be said about movement in the office, let's keep it as minimal as possible, and you will see that this is a red thread around the entire presentation. If we're in the office, go do your thing at the desk, at least for the time being. Limit movement, limit cafeteria time, limit interactions, unfortunately, but in order to keep these things going, it's important to limit as much as possible the movement. We've had also a question about people's paranoia about coming back to work. Everything that we have seen and all our indication and everything that our colleagues in corporate solutions have experienced in this regard says, be empathic, be understanding with your staff. People have different degrees of dealing with things that are so personal, because this is a health issue. This is not a gimmick. This is not a work-related issue. It's very, very personal. People have different situations at home. Kids, no kids, they have different health situations at home or themselves. So be empathic, and as much as possible, with the help of your HR and with the help of your team leaders, try to cater or personalize the measures towards your staff if you can afford to.
Let's move, because we'll reach to the canteen. I think we have the presentation of the canteen, because I saw several questions coming on the canteen area.
Yeah. I think, we were discussing working from home. To put it very bluntly, if possible, the best thing to do with the canteen is to limit its use, encourage people to bring their own food from home. Of course, social distancing inside the canteen, and you've seen the schemes. If you need to be in there and you need to eat inside the canteen, its use will probably be no more than 30% of the density. It very much depends on its design and the way that it. But
anyway, you'll see an increase of people bringing the food from home. This is clear for different reasons, but you'll see that you have to see if the capacity of the microwaves, everything that is needed there to ensure that the people can heat their food. There is, I mean, I don't see an option to let people eat in the office. I don't think that that's a solution. We can again offline give you some design or ideas on how you have to consider cafeteria as well, keeping the physical distance as well in the office, by having some seats that are not occupied. I've also seen recommendation of having some lunch hours already reserved. So not all the people can go at the same time. So doing like in the restaurants will be done in the hotels.
Basically, you reserve your spot in the canteen as you would a conference room, to put it simply.
Yes, or you can do again. You can do shifts. In one day, someone is eating at 11. Another day, someone is eating at 11:30, and so on. But you have to consider how many people do you have in the office, how many are eating inside. And you can actually take some drastic measure of having like maybe 30 minutes maximum per meal in order to accommodate all the people. Of course, if your cafeteria doesn't allow to do such things, probably you'll appeal to the extreme measure of having people eating in the office. Again, a recommendation, maybe you can use 1 or 2 meeting rooms instead of open office, if possible.
And the recommendation is to ask people to bring food from home. So,
so just to give you an example, we've all opened the Düsseldorf office and I think the Milan office last week, if I'm not mistaken. It's also eating is a cultural thing. Let's be very clear. In Germany, they closed everything. So they moved to bottled water as opposed to the fountains, and they closed the coffee machine. In Italy, that was not possible because the Italians said we need to have our coffee. But they put, there's somebody around the coffee machine that is the only person that handles the coffee and is trained specially, and they sanitize it and they whatever. Also,
or you can use very cheap, I don't know, plastic gloves like the one that you are seeing in the petrol station. I don't know. Something, but again,
also open paper cups and throwaway paper cups and stuff like that come in bulk, and you have to take your own, or that have come in that are not individually wrapped, have been removed from the office. I think the German office put together cups that are the glass cups or ceramics cups, and they instructed people to wash their own. And speaking of signage, that was one of them. So before you put anything in a cup, please wash it for 10 seconds with soap and water, and put your own drink into the cup and then take it out. I don't remember which one of them was. I think that might have been the Italians. So there are different ways of dealing with different things. It's again also a cultural thing, but bringing food from home, bringing the capacity of the lunch area to at a very max 30%. Having the spots designated in the cafeteria area, as Marius described for the offices, is very important. Having them under the obligation to book a spot in the cafeteria in order to be able to be there. Those are quick, if you will, fixes of this. And with common sense and practice and education of your staff, they should be enough to move yourself forward. I see a question about masks in the office all day. Again, this is down to what the authorities will say also, because if they say masks inside closed spaces all the time, that's what it's going to be. So we deal with that, and there have been geographies that have said that. As an aside, in the Düsseldorf office, we don't have masks in the office. In the Wuhan office, you'll see pictures in a minute, they are working with masks inside the office.
Sylvia, I just want to go back a little bit to the coffee machine. That's not the only recommendation we have regarding the any touch gesture that we have in our day-to-day business in the office. Some of the tenants have the meeting rooms signals that you can touch, reserve, or switch to on and off or book. And this is another thing that you should dismiss during this period. So you don't have to remove it. You just should have to temporarily close it, not to be used by employees. And even you can stop it, so they will not touch it because it's not working, or you can put signs, messages, not to touch different kind of things like that. You can keep your reception door open if you have a receptionist. Again, not to have people pushing the buttons. And everything that it's touch-based. Printer, again, that's another risk, the printer machine. You should limit somehow using the printer, or you should install again. Either you have a special person that operates, or if you have gloves, or I don't know, pieces of paper that you can use to work with that. I have seen even some jokes on the internet, but they are actually very good solution if you count. So some sponges put in a support with a lot of toothpicks. Yes, so they were like toothpicks, and then you pick a toothpick and you push the button on the elevator, or I don't know, something like that. It could be a joke, but at the same time, I think it's a very good solution for some of the appliances that we are using inside the office.
Yeah, for example, in our office, what we're trying to implement, and we've been discussing this with the team that is handling the back to office, is that we will, because we're a small office, small enough to be able to educate people, they'll have an entry kit with the proper utensils. So we're going to try to make it their responsibility to make sure that their office space is cleaned. Of course, we'll have cleaning every hour, but we'll encourage them to go to the printer with one of the wipes and push with the wipe instead of something else.
Yes.
We have been considering making it a paperless office. I would love to, but as you know, it's a big thing. Paper is a big thing. So there are different solutions, and if you want, so because we have a bit of still a bit of presentation to go through, we can take these all also on offline and contact any of us, and we'll try to help you out and give you examples and do some research for you and make sure that you get the information that you need.
Also, in order to help you, we have created this re-entry checklist that as a, I don't know, a draft. Some of you may use less, some of you may need to add more, but this is a good checklist to have when thinking how to reopen the office. And every reference that you see here as a client, for instance, establishing guidelines and protocols, seek agreements from client. Client, it's referring to your internal client. So if you are an HR manager, your client, it's your company. If you are a facility manager, your client, it's the company that you are working for. So this is a very good checklist to as light checklist as possible, that you should tick all the boxes before considering opening the office.
And we're down to the people, and Colin's question about people. It's important, as we've said. People are the reason we're doing all of this, and protecting their lives and livelihood and well-being is what this is all about. We have, and these are the things that have been implemented. You will see during this work from home period. It gets a bit lonely, and you will continue to have people working from home. That's let's be very clear about that, because in order to keep the social distancing, unless you would be happy to, but I'm not sure that you want to increase your space by 30 to 50%, you'll have to still have people working from home, and that means that you'll have longer than 2 months to keep them engaged and well and sane. So this is just an example of what comes through to us at JLL from our well-being ambassadors. It's the Wednesday, you'll see it's actually yesterday, with bits and pieces. It's playful, it's fun, and it's a bit of relaxation for the people, and deals with their emotions in this time. And they are actually useful and very well done. So about the well-being toolkit, give them tools to feel that they're being protected, that the company is thinking about them, that their well-being, not only their productivity, is on your mind. This is an actual photo that was done in Wuhan. We received it from one of our colleagues. The welcome back kit. It's for people, and don't underestimate, and Colin is right, thank you for the point, don't underestimate the capacity of people to, or the panic that people with certain conditions, or even people with no conditions, will feel when being asked to go back to the office. And while being mindful, the essential people in your workforce that need to go back to the office, if you show that you've been considering their fears, and if you show that you're protecting them in a way, it's good to keep that in mind as well.
Because you just brought back the question coming from Colin about the panic of the people. Please, I mean, we have to be honest. Some people will be panicking, and we have to take care of them, but we need to be focused on the other people, which are on the opposite side, which are very relaxed. They don't trust that it's a real danger outside.
Yes,
we do have such people, and we need to focus on those as well during the activity in the office, if they will be in the office. So we need to be careful of them respecting the guidelines that you're providing, the rules that you are putting the people to engage. So we need to be careful on both, of all the people, of course, but yeah, on the both type of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what else do we have here? Oh yes, this one I was very pleasantly surprised about. It's about, especially in large offices where communication is not done naturally, and people might not know another 300, 400, 500 people, and there are consideration of mobility. For example, we have colleagues in the office, and I'm sure some of you have, that have to come to the office with public transportation. Some of these particular workers might, in this times, not be very comfortable in using public transportation. There are companies that are considering shuttles. Of course, shuttles can also be used with social distancing in mind, so less dense. Also for smaller offices, or for different type of their solution with taxis or whatever other transportation. But having somebody to talk to about this, like a mobility ambassador, a person that is in charge to figure out what your position is and what your personal needs are in terms of getting to the office, if you need to get into the office. This adds a human touch, and it might avoid frictions and unnecessary heartache in this process of going back to the office. So apart from the HR, the admins, the facility managers, all of these people that are looking to the system and putting rules and regulations and procedures in place, having a human touch, somebody that is there for the individuals to be able to ask an advice on two aspects. One is mobility, so getting to and from the office, or to client, like in our case, for example, we work client-based for some of for our clients. Getting to that place of work is important, especially for larger offices. And experienced ambassadors. people that are there to guide the workers in this initial stage, the first couple of rotations of the shifts and so on, might smooth out the asperities of such a moment. And might be a solution to avoid having either team leaders or HR overwhelmed with small day-to-day hassles that might happen in this sort of a change, because it's amazing.
And will help people not panic, and will help people feeling safe coming back to all the the models.
We've discussed visitor screening and temperature checks. These are some of the solutions that that can be implemented with infrared cameras and with other type of instruments. It's a choice. It's something that you can decide together again with the building and the rest of the tenants to what level you want these screenings to be done.
Anyway, things should be done based on common sense now, because we are allowed and we have experience working from home. If someone feels that is getting sick or has some signs that something is happening, they should announce immediately. They should stay at now they can work from home, or at least probably 90% of the employees were capable to work from home.
Yes, and this is the cafeteria bit. Increase the meals brought from home, social distancing inside the cafeteria. If you have
internal canteen and you have some agreements with some service provider of food, again you should have this kind of arrangement. So meals that are coming into recipients that will be used just for one time and by only one.
No storage in the cafeteria. Nothing that could attract more than one interaction a day with the space. So if it needs to be, let's make it one. Let's make it half an hour. Let's make it booked and socially distanced or spatially distanced.
And if, for instance, with the suppliers, posts and everything like that, I mean, at least if you don't have to put plastic boards inside your office because they are not looking attractive, or you find a different solution, at least use it at the reception desk, because that is the point that you have all the couriers, delivers and so on coming in the office. So at least that place should be somehow protected.
Ideally, since the technology exists, you should, yes, the mail lockers that Maria was mentioning at the beginning of the presentation, if you have those, it's the type that EMAG, for example, uses. So there's a courier, you have a locker for your company, they put something in there and you get an email and you go down and you get your and these are being sanitized, and you can protect yourself better. Plus you avoid having couriers up and down the elevators in a building, which might create additional risks. So I think what we wanted to go through, we went through. This is we kind of try to tick all the boxes that we can for you in this instance. But there are indeed, and we've had questions about. There was a legal question here about something or other. There are questions for lawyers as well, and there's a legal aspect of this as well. There was a question about the legality of doing the screenings. We had also this question, the answer that we got at a group level, but that was out of the UK, was that this, as long as you don't store it, it shouldn't be a problem. But please get your own legal advice. This is that's very particular, and we've had also discussions on this issue. So definitely worth having another round of questions with legal, or waiting for actual instructions from the government once they do relax the conditions and so on. And as promised, this is our Wuhan office doing their socially distanced or spatially distanced morning exercises up left, and working or having a meeting in the office, observing the, you can see that they are using the face masks inside of the office. And you can also see that what they've tried to do is to keep their desks as clean and free of clutter as possible in order to be able to, for the cleaning to be done properly. And this is us. If you have questions or anything else to tell us, please do.
I know that this is registered and you have the presentation, and you have some examples inside, but feel free to contact us offline as well. We do have also other information that we couldn't include everything in those presentation. Everything that we have available coming from our experienced colleagues that are already gone through the reopening the offices and issues that they encounter and things that change. We are constantly updating our presentation. We can provide this information to you.
And if you need help with implementing this, call us. If you need help, this is information for you to have. If you need actual help on translating this into your situation, call us, and with our help, but with the experience of the guys in corporate solutions that do this for large occupiers, we're able to help. Okay. I see another question. Thank you.
Thanks, Marius.
Hope to see you soon in the office.
Yes, and do this face to face, because it's very difficult to do this without seeing your reactions and your faces. The presentation, actually the report that is the basis for this presentation will be sent to you by the ABSL team.
So the presentation and the report, yes, that is constantly updated.
Yeah, they will be available. Yes.
Maybe we have some additional information as well. I think we have some graphs again with recommendation.
And Marius has very, very, very creative ideas.
Toothpicks and everything.
The toothpick is.
I saw it on the internet, but again, I think that's.
You should have put it in. You should have put it in. I'm telling you.
The toothpicks are cheaper than the gloves.
And you find them, so.
And they're available. Okay.
Thank
a lot,
you very
everybody.
much. From all of us at ABSL, thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Bye.